Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Buckeye Weekly Podcast. I am Tony Gerdeman here as always with Tom Orr. Tom, how is it going?
Yeah, you always say here as always with Tom Orr, but man, it feels like it really is like always. It feels like we're doing a breaking news podcast about every 60 to 90 minutes or so at this point. Here we are in the off season. Off season, Tony. Remember when the off season was a thing? Hey, Tony, guess what? There's more news for Ohio State football.
Yeah, there is more news as Alabama incoming freshman quarterback Julian Sayin is transferring to Ohio State. Sayin was the top quarterback in the 2024 class. I'll give you all of the recruiting service rankings here. He was number one in the at quarterback for On3, the number 7 player overall. 24/7 Sports had him as the number 3 quarterback, the number 21 player overall. ESPN had him as the number 1 quarterback, number 3 player overall. Rivals had him as the number 2 quarterback, the number 4 player overall, and everybody but 24/7 had him as the number 1 player from California. He's from Carlsbad, California. And I think anytime you can get the number 1 player in California, you should probably go and do it, even if it takes him going to another school first, as it did with Julian Sayin. And we've seen the incredible fallout from Nick Saban's retirement. And you probably listen to other shows that we've talked about, the Caleb Downs transfer and commitment to Ohio State, referred back to that one. But Tom, this is this unnecessary?
Is what unnecessary? Bringing in Julian Sayin? Or doing a podcast about bringing in Julian Sayin? This all feels necessary. Kind of whatever the question is, it feels necessary. You mentioned the national recruiting rankings. That is as consensus a top of the board kind of guy as you're going to find. On top of that, he was the Gatorade Player of the Year in the state of California, which is a whole separate evaluation process. He was also the MVP of the Elite 11 finals last year, which is a whole separate evaluation process. At some point, you're going to have the, reasonable minds can disagree kind of conversation, especially about evaluating high school football players. This is one where everybody is kind of, Tony, if you will pardon the pun, saying the same thing. It is all the recruiting services, Elite 11, Gatorade Player of the Year. That tells me he can do the camp thing, has the arm, can make all the throws, but also it's translating to the field. And also it's projectable because that's it. Like, that's the whole package. There is not some other element of evaluation that that is out there that it's like, well, but they're not talking about this. Like, no, that's it. That's the whole list.
Yeah, it is impressive, the overall opinion on him. And it's not like he's put up huge numbers. This is a guy in his 3 years starting as a quarterback in high school, threw for 2,347 yards as a senior. And the most he threw for was as a sophomore, 2,769 yards. So like between 2,300 and 2,800 yards is what he's done. As a senior, he threw 24 touchdowns and just 1 interception. He's 6'1", 195. The thing that people talk about him is just the feel for the game, the ball placement, the easy throws. Like, you watch him and you don't see this gigantic arm or anything, but because he makes it look pretty easy. And he can also run some. He's certainly not just a statue pocket passer. Like I said, he's 6'1", 195. So probably grew up having to run a little bit, being a maybe not the biggest quarterback, maybe on the, can't even say the smaller side, but necessary to run. And he will run when needed, but has been a prodigy basically everywhere he's gone. Committed to Alabama, I think November of 2022. Ohio State wasn't really in on him because they had a commitment from Dylan Raiola. So they just, we're going to ride with Dylan Raiola. Dylan Raiola decommits December 17th, I think, 2022. And 1 month later, Ohio State offers Julian Sayin. And Sayin had already been committed to Alabama for a couple of months. Ohio State had to try, didn't necessarily, obviously, maybe went somewhere. He was happy to receive the offer, but he stayed at Alabama. Ohio State then goes out, offers Air Noland in the spring. They get a commitment from him, so they're done. But then Nick Saban goes and retires, and you have Julian Sayin knocking on your door, and you have to be like, well, we're in the business of getting as much talent as possible in our room, but you also need to talk to the room about it, don't you?
Well, you do have to talk to the room about it. And this is kind of one of the new realities of college football is you can have someone who just signed with Alabama a month ago. Like it was December 20th. So it was, just about a month ago. And then he's in the portal. And then you have the opportunity to add someone before National Signing Day even happens. This is, he's already signed in this class, and you have an opportunity to now add him to your class for the class of 2024. I think you obviously have to have conversations with your guys about it, but the goal here for Ryan Day and the Buckeyes is the best possible team on the field. That's the goal. And this is, every position you're competing with the best guys in the country at your position group. This is Brian Hartline is not thinking, well, do I want to bring in one more good wide receiver? He just goes and gets another good wide receiver. Tim Walton is not thinking, do I want to bring in another 5-star corner? I'm not sure. It might hurt people's feelings. Like you bring in another 5-star corner, and those positions are a little different because you're playing one quarterback for the most part, and you're playing more than one corner, more than one wide receiver. But you're trying to stack the most talent that you possibly can. Too many good quarterbacks in a room. That sounds like a problem. You can make that sound like a problem. That's not actually a problem. That's a good thing. And you don't expect guys to come in and start their first year, and you don't want your guys to have to come in and start their first year. So come in, get developed, and then see where things go from there. We'll see how this, what kind of impact this has on the quarterback room. But, when you have the opportunity to bring in a player like this, you bring in a player like this. Yeah. Malik Hartford is a safety. Very encouraging, impressive freshman year, true freshman to be out there in the spots that he was, obviously a very bright future. You don't need to ask twice if you have the opportunity to bring in a Caleb Downs. You bring in a Caleb Downs. There's a lot of talent in that Ohio State quarterback room. Now there's just a little more talent in that Ohio State quarterback room.
Well, even real quickly, the conversation with Malik Hartford and Caleb Downs, having Caleb Downs on this roster is going to make Malik Hartford a better player. That from playing with him, watching him, just competing with him, and the same goes for the quarterback situation. I do wonder, as the staff talked it over, the offensive staff talked it over, then I'm just imagining, like, you have Ryan Day, Bill O'Brien, Brian Hartline, maybe Corey Dennis, all saying, hey, Air, we need to talk to you. This is what we're thinking. What do you think? And a 18, 19-year-old quarterback with those four guys just kind of maybe like not putting pressure on you, but you don't want to say at that moment, I don't want to compete. At that moment, you're probably like, I don't care who you bring in whoever you want because I'm going to compete. And that may be like, that would, in theory, like a reaction to that kind of meeting, or that just may be who you are. And at quarterback, that's what they want to see. And whatever the situation is, coaches love to see how their quarterbacks react to tough situations on the field, off the field. It all is data that they use. And this is one more. And do you want to be the guy who they're like, coaches come in and say, hey, we're thinking of doing this. How do you feel about it? And the quarterback is like, no, I don't think you should do that. That would, it would have to be a conversation where, you'd be like, well, you told me you weren't going, like if there's a specific lie told, this is no lie. This is a situation where they brought in Air Noland. They didn't say we're not going to get anybody, or, this is the entire circumstance has changed. So you have this opportunity, and it's also an opportunity for Air Noland. Again, it's more competition. It is, a challenge, and with the quarterback competition, that there's going to be so many quarterback competitions this year, Tom. You got the top of the line, you've got the young part of the line, and I guarantee you, Tom, they're going to be splitting up the two practice sessions with the quarterbacks and the offenses again, where they're just going. They may need 3. I'm just going to say that now, but they've got enough fields for it. But I also think you do want your quarterbacks on the roster, your young quarterbacks. I think Air Noland saying, yeah, go ahead and bring this, whatever, I don't care, I'm going to compete. I think that is also a good thing.
Well, I don't think you get to the point where Air Noland is, where you're one of the top quarterback prospects in the country. And, he was ranked all the way down as like the number 5, number 4 kind of prospect in the country at quarterback. He's not exactly any kind of a slouch either. And you don't get to that point to be that kind of quarterback at, playing in Georgia in kind of big school Georgia football. You don't get to be that at that point if you're just kind of scared to compete. That's you are not scared to compete if you're competing at that level, because you've always been the best guy wherever you've been playing. So I don't think this is something that should be immediately chasing Air Noland into the portal or anything like that. And he doesn't actually have the option to go in the portal yet. He would have to wait until at least after spring ball to do that. And that's true of anyone who on the Ohio State roster, unless they have graduated, which none of their quarterbacks have. So this is all a little bit of a theoretical conversation right now. But yeah, if you are a quarterback who's now been on campus for 2 weeks, what are you going to say? Like, no, thank you. I respectfully decline your offer. And, this is like the UN Security Council where I can vote no, and that means that it doesn't happen. That's not how it works. So, this is, I very much doubt that Air Noland, approached Ryan Day during the recruiting process and said, so hypothetically, if Nick Saban retires and then Julian Sayin goes in the portal, would you be interested in him? Like, I don't think that's probably how that played out. But again, if you can bring in this kind of talent, you do it. And there is a track record of guys who you go through a year or two with Ryan Day at Ohio State, you learn from him, and then if you don't win the starting job, then maybe you transfer if you're a year or two in. I mean, this was the Joe Burrow story, leaving Ohio State when he was not sure he was going to win the starting job against Dwayne Haskins. Quinn Ewers came to Ohio State for a year. It was pretty apparent that C.J. Stroud was going to be the starter for another year after that, and so then he transferred to Texas, and he's done just fine with himself. So, coming to Ohio State for a year, 2 years, whatever, you learn, you fight for the position when there's a positional battle, and then you see where it goes from there. I don't think there's any reason you'd need to immediately hit the portal if you're Air Noland.
Yeah, and it will be an interesting watch this spring when you have Will Howard, Devin Brown, Lincoln Keenholz, Julian Sayin, Air Noland. At this point, I would expect Will Howard and Devin Brown to be competing for the starting job, and then the 3 youngsters a little bit off on their own, but getting as many reps as possible, because this day and age now, you do need to get guys reps in order to make them feel like they have a chance or that they are engaged, and you need to keep them engaged and also continue to improve so that they have an opportunity to compete. So, boy, it has been an interesting January, and it's going to be a fascinating March and April, and we will be here for all of it. As you know, you can find us at BuckeyeHuddle.com. We will be talking about this for a while longer. You can find us on the message board, the Huddle message board there. If you become a member, join up. Ton of stuff going on there, a ton of discussions about all of these new additions. And even though all of this is happening, people are still like, I want more, give me more. I need more portal players. And who knows, there is still plenty of time for some of these coaching changes to shake some things out. But this should be enough. You should have enough by now. You should be satisfied with what you've got. But you can also find us at youtube.com/BuckeyeHuddle. If you have not yet liked this video, if you're watching it, please do. We would appreciate that. And of course, hit the bell to be notified when we do any more emergency instant reaction live shows, because this will not be the last one. So thank you all for tuning in, and we'll talk to you guys later.